we have a lot of discussions online about the battles between people who like digital and people who like analog, and between computers and people like hardware. But as I look behind me, I see in front of our last reactor developer, both of these machines kind of holding hands.
Exactly. Yeah, so we have a hardware Eurorack modular synthesizer here, of which I'm only going to use about 2 modules actually, so the rest is just there to make us look impressive. And on the other side here, I have a MacBook Pro running Reactor. So how do we connect these together? And some sort of
keyboard as well, which I guess we'll see.
No, that's a demo later on.
Oh, okay, never mind.
I could use a keyboard, but it won't make any difference. Yeah, so how do we connect these two things? So, I mean, one thing to mention first is that when we were designing blocks, we wanted to make a system that communicates internally in exactly the same way that an analog modular synthesizer does. So all the signals are the same, essentially. Like, you don't have different standards, you don't have different ranges. Like, anything that's within a block's modular patch, if you send it out through some output of your sound card, well, with some caveats, and stick it into your modular, then it will do something sensible. Like, so you don't have to think about it, you can just do it. And that's what I'm going to demonstrate to you tonight, basically. So I have Reactor connected up to a sound card, which is feeding its ADAT digital audio out into this module in the modular here. I don't know if we can see the modular on the screen. Okay, yeah, you see here. So this is basically a module that just takes this digital audio out and turns it into 8 analog audio streams. And we're going to use these streams to take outputs from blocks and do a couple of simple things with these modules in the analog modular.
So blocks is producing, or Reactor through blocks is producing audio signal.
No, it's producing control signals.
But I mean through the audio output. So audio signal that we're not listening to, but audio rate signals that we're using to control the modular.
It's producing low frequency, like control signals. So this is where the caveat comes in. Only some sound cards will let you output this stuff. You can check with your manufacturer or whatever, but... And
what we're looking for is DC coupled.
Yeah, I didn't want to mention the bad terms.
Well, I can do it. Yeah, okay. They can't fire me because I don't work for native instruments.
Yeah, your audio interface has to be DC coupled, which means it passes very low frequency things, which is not normally necessary, but for this...
But you can find a list of audio interfaces that do that, and actually quite a few do. And
anyway, let's make some sound, perhaps.
Let's make some sounds.
So I have this oscillator. Yep, we can see again. Patched into a low-pass gate. So this is a setup a little bit like the Buchla kind of standard voice that Jan was talking about earlier. So let's just see if that's making some sound. Okay, maybe I need to turn up the frequency a bit. So not very much going on there at the moment, kind of boring. Let's turn it back down again. So the first thing we're going to do here is, you see I've already patched up a clock in Reactor. So this is just like a module that sends out a trigger signal once every however many musical divisions. And we're just connecting this output directly to one of the outputs of Reactor, which will then appear here in the modular. And we're going to use that little trigger ping to open the low-pass gate and get a rhythm. So I will patch that in now. You see, we have a rhythm already. Turn up this to make it sound a bit more interesting. Okay, but that's pretty boring. So what do we do if we want to get something more complicated going on? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect the... okay, this is the wrong screen. I'm going to connect this clock module to another module we have called a clock divider. This is a module that basically like counts beats and then outputs new pulses after a certain number of counts. So you can get interesting musical divisions from this. So I'm going to patch out from here. Actually, no, I'm going to do something different. Let's improvise. I'm going to patch one of these divisions out into an envelope. That's much more exciting than just a trigger, right? Let's make sure the envelope is doing something interesting. So no sustain, because everybody hates sustain. And we can patch this envelope directly out into the modular again. And let's see what happens if we patch this into the other control input of the low-pass gate. It should give us a bit more rhythmic structure, at least. Turn it up. So we've got some more going on, but still, I don't know, there's some rhythm there, but it's not that interesting. So why don't we just do the same thing again? So we're going to make another envelope. Trigger it from another output from the clock divider. And send that out through another output back into the modular. And seeing as we don't have much time and we want to do something flashy, let's patch that into an input which alters the timbre of the sound that we're getting. So that goes in here. Turn up some knobs. I know. I know what's going on here. It's a dodgy cable. This is one of the pitfalls of using hardware, of course. You can be undone by a dodgy cable. Hopefully this is not a dodgy cable. Okay, so there we go. Proper cable, and now we have stuff going on. We've got the timbre moving, we have the rhythm. I mean, this is already quite musical, well, in a way, in a very bass way. But the thing to emphasize at this point is that all this control, all this movement is coming out of reactor. Like, the sound is coming from the modular, but the control is coming from reactor, and that's a cool thing to do. So let's just finish off by patching something else small up quickly. I don't know, let's maybe just take one more output from the clock divider out into the outside world again. Maybe set it to a different rhythm. Then we're going to take another output from the oscillator. We're going to put it into the second low-pass gate down here. And then we're going to use this other rhythmic output to just trigger that to get like another beating kind of line against this. Before I turn this on, I'm just going to say that I didn't tune these, so this is going to be horribly out of tune. I'll try and control it and get it back into an interesting zone, but can we even hear it? Maybe if we turn this one down a bit. So we have a saw wave coming out of the other one, just giving us another rhythmic accent.
I'm ready to dance to this already. It's cool. I mean,
that's something at least.
The nervous laughter from the audience says they don't agree, but you know, okay.
Come on, this is classic Buchla stuff. Yeah, I mean, so this is the thing to take away from this. Like, basically, it's incredibly easy to get signals coming out from your modular. Coming out from reactor and controlling your modular. Like, you can use reactor blocks as an extension to your modular. Nobody wants to buy like 20 LFO modules or 20 envelope modules, but if you have reactor, you have that available to you, which is a nice thing. So please try this at home.
Thank you so much. All right. Now, I already see a question coming up from our audience, which is there a way to reduce the amount of CPU usage from one block's patch? I guess that's a question for you.
Yeah, use less blocks.
No, they just said one. Use none blocks patches.
No, well, okay.
It depends what you're doing.
Yeah.
The thing that blocks does, well, the difference for me between the hardware stuff and the block stuff is that the hardware stuff, it limits you to how many modules you can have in one case, and because you're limited, you get quite creative with how you use them. Blocks, as fantastic it is, because you can just load as many as your computer can hold, but sometimes that does encourage you to not be efficient with how you use them. So, I mean,
there's another point to consider there as well, which is that because we were kind of competing in the same domain as hardware modulars with the blocks, like we spend a lot of CPU cycles on really making them sound and behave like the modules in a hardware modular would. So we made a conscious decision to like allow them to be expensive so that they sounded really good. Because you don't want like a poor recreation of your hardware modular in the computer, right? You want something that's really up there in the same ballpark. Yeah. And to do that is expensive.
Well, you want cool sounds and for no CPU. Yeah, of course everyone wants that.
Yeah.
But if you don't have any more money for more modules and you don't have money for a new computer, your strategy for kind of reducing CPU usage for blocks, is there kind of anything for people to know so that they
Well,
Or they can
reduce
experiment and watch the
sampling-
CPU
Reduce the
meter.
sampling rate to 22 kilohertz.
No, I think it's
But you're
about
probably
getting
not going to like the
creative.
sound.
I think there are actually, for one outcome in blocks, there are actually 3 or 4 different ways of achieving it sometimes. If you want a simple slew generator or if you want a noise generator, there's like a bunch of different ways you could do it. And sometimes you can, some are more efficient than others because if you want a noise generator, you could get one from the sample and hold. Rather than loading a oscillator that has a noise output on it, it will work out more efficiently. So I think the key thing is to really explore what the blocks can offer individually, and then you can kind of find out other ways of achieving similar things that might be more efficient. I mean, as Julian said, there's only so much you can do to make these things efficient, and everybody did their best to get things as low as possible, but maintaining a high level of audio quality. Cool. So yeah, there's a compromise.
That's a good answer, I think. Let's have one more round of applause for the people who made Reactor. Thank you, guys.